Chapter 5. Betrayed. The gentleman spun around, realising he'd been robbed. "Stop! Thief!" he yelled at Oliver. Oliver looked for Dodger, but he'd vanished. Panicking, Oliver raced off, followed by every man and woman in the street. "Stop! Thief!" they shouted, chasing him helter-skelter through mud and puddles, throwing sticks and stones at his scrawny back. Oliver, breathless, kept running until a stone struck his head. He fell down, stunned. "Please, sir," he whispered as the gentleman reached him, "I'm not a thief." The gentleman stared at him. Well, you look honest. Indeed, you look like—" He stopped, puzzled. "I'm sure I know that face," he murmured. "Get the police," said a passer-by. "No, he deserves a chance," replied the gentleman. "Who are you, boy?" "My name's Brownlow. Perhaps I can help you. Come with me." Mr. Brownlow took Oliver to his grand house. In the hallway was a portrait of a beautiful girl. Oliver stopped and stared at it, drinking it in. "That was my niece, Agnes," said Mr. Brownlow. "She had a sad life. I wish she'd come to me for help. She must be dead now, poor girl." He looked at the portrait, then at Oliver. "I can't believe it," he muttered. "The likeness is extraordinary. Where were you born?" he asked urgently. "In Mr. Bumble's workhouse," Oliver replied, surprised at the sudden question. "Yes, I've heard of it," said Mr. Brownlow, nodding and looking grim. "Now, tell me about yourself." Oliver recounted his life story up until the moment he ran from the bookshop. "I believe you," said Mr. Brownlow. He put his hands on Oliver's shoulders and looked down at him. "Would you like to live here and go to school?" "Really?" gasped Oliver. "Truly?" Mr. Brownlow laughed. "I'll have Mrs. Bedwin, my housekeeper, show you to your room." "You poor child," sighed Mrs. Bedwin as she took Oliver upstairs. "So dirty and ragged. Have a hot bath and I'll get you some clean clothes." Lying in bed that night, Oliver had never felt happier. And as the weeks passed, he grew happier still. Mrs. Bedwin looked after him from a good breakfast each morning to a hug last thing at night. Mr. Brownlow played games with him, shared his books, and taught him chess and music. "I feel as if I'm living in a dream," thought Oliver. A few weeks later, Mr. Brownlow summoned him to his study. "Here's £5 and some books. Will you take them to the bookshop where we met?" "Of course," replied Oliver. "I'll do anything for you." "And come straight home," Mr. Brownlow added. "I'll run there and back again," Oliver promised. He ran down the front steps and waved goodbye to Mrs. Bedwin, who was watching him from the window. "Bless him," she thought. "I can't bear to let him out of my sight." Oliver whistled as he strolled down the street. Suddenly, a pair of arms seized him tightly around the neck. "Ow!" he yelled. "Let go!" "Oh, Oliver, you naughty boy! I found you at last." Oliver was astonished. It was Nancy, Bill Sikes' friend. "Nancy, is that you? What are you doing here?" A crowd gathered, staring at them. "He's my little runaway brother," Nancy announced in a silky, false voice. "But—" Oliver began. Bill Sikes shot out of a beer shop with his snarling dog and grabbed Oliver. "Watch him, Bullseye," he hissed. Bullseye seized Oliver's leg and hung onto it with his sharp teeth. "I don't belong to these people," shouted Oliver, struggling to get away. "I have to go back to Mr. Brownlow." But Nancy quickly covered his mouth until he nearly suffocated. Bill dragged him through the alleyways, Bullseye growling at Oliver's every step until they reached Fagin's attic. "Good of you to drop in, Oliver," drawled Fagin sarcastically. "Fancy clothes," laughed Dodger. "Expensive books. We'll sell everything," growled Fagin. He examined Oliver's pockets. "Aha! Even better. Here's £5. "Mine," growled Bill. "No, mine, surely," contradicted Fagin, but Bill snatched it away. "It's Mr. Brownlow's," said Oliver bitterly. "Let me go," he begged, "or Mr. Brownlow will think I'm a thief." Fagin patted his head. "We'll make you one soon." "No," Oliver shouted. "Why do you want me anyway?" "So you can't tell tales," sneered Bill. "Once you're one of us, you won't dare tell the police. Now shut up." Chapter 6. A Robbery. Oliver was forced to wear filthy rags again. For several days the thieves made him stay in the attic, watched over by the vicious Bullseye. Every time Oliver went near the door, Bullseye snarled, showing his sharp fangs. "Don't set the dog on him, Bill," Nancy begged. "You've got Oliver back. You don't have to frighten him now." "Oh, don't I?" snarled Bill. He brandished a pistol. "See this, Oliver?" Oliver nodded nervously. "It's loaded. If you don't do what you're told, I'll fire. Understand?" "Yes, Bill," said Oliver, trembling. "Good. There's a job I want to do tonight. Big house loaded with silver and jewels. They keep a small window open and I need a scrap of a boy to slip through it and undo the locks on the door." "He means what he says about the gun," advised Fagin. "Don't try and cross Bill Sykes." When night fell, Bill dragged Oliver to the house. They hid under a bush until the church clock struck midnight. It was intensely dark. Bill hoisted Oliver up to a tiny window. "Get in," he hissed. "Please don't make me steal," implored Oliver. Sykes raised his fist. "Do it, or I'll bash your head in." He shoved Oliver through the window, lit a lantern and handed it to him. "Open the front door," he ordered. "There's a bolt at the top you won't reach, so stand on one of the chairs. Remember, you're in my gunshot range." Oliver saw Bill's pistol aimed at him. He had no choice. He crept inside and went to unlock the door. As he slid back the bolt, he heard Bill running round to the front of the house. "I must warn the family somehow," Oliver thought. "I don't care what happens to me." And he dropped the lantern with a clatter. After that, everything seemed to happen at once. Bill burst in to grab Oliver, a man appeared with a gun, and both men fired. Oliver screamed, caught in the crossfire. He clutched his arm and saw his sleeve turn red. Bill dragged him outside. "You fool," he growled. "They'll be after us. Run!" But Oliver, his arm throbbing, lagged behind. Bill flung him into a ditch. "You're too slow," he yelled down at him. "You can die here." When Bill finally reached Fagin's house, Nancy rushed up to him. "How did it go?" she asked. "Disaster," said Bill curtly. "Get me a drink." "Where's the boy, Bill?" "Dying in a ditch somewhere." "You can't leave him there," Nancy cried. "I'll go and find him." Bill lurched to his feet. "Don't you dare, Nancy." But Nancy had already grabbed her cloak and was running through the door. A crafty look spread over Bill's face. "After her, Bullseye," he ordered. "She won't get away with this." Nancy ran to the house Bill had tried to rob and searched everywhere for Oliver. At last she found him, weak and shivering. "Thank you for coming," he muttered. She quickly bandaged his bleeding arm with her shawl. "I found your friend, Mr. Brownlow. I'll take you to him," she whispered. "He'll be waiting for us on London Bridge." "I don't believe you," Oliver said. "It's a trick." "It isn't, Oliver. I promise. I met Mr. Brownlow yesterday. It's all arranged." "Why are you doing this?" "I've worked for Fagin since I was little. I don't want you to suffer like me." "Stay with me," Oliver urged her. "Mr. Brownlow will look after you too. We could both start a new life." "I can't leave Bill," Nancy shrugged. "I know he's bad, but I love him. Besides," she added, "I've been a thief all my life. It's too late to change now." "It's never too late," said Oliver. They hurried through the dark streets where flickering gas lamps shone eerie shafts of light on the cobbles. Neither of them saw the dog following them, a dog with a scratched, torn face and an eager, snarling mouth. And behind the dog, a man who moved with silent, stealthy footsteps through the shadows. Chapter 7. The Secret of the Locket. They reached the bridge at dawn. Mr. Brownlow was waiting just as Nancy had promised. "Run!" she cried to Oliver. Oliver dashed forward. He'd almost reached Mr. Brownlow's outstretched arms when Nancy's frightened voice made him turn around. "Why did you follow me, Bill?" Nancy stuttered. I told no tales. I'd never cross on you." "You took the boy away," Bill bellowed. "You betrayed me, Nancy. I can't ever trust you again." Then Oliver heard Nancy scream, "No, Bill! Bill, no!" Bang! A pistol shot exploded and Nancy slumped lifeless to the ground. Bill swore and closed his eyes. "I had to kill her," he muttered. Oliver was frozen to the spot with terror. "I'm here, Oliver," said Mr. Brownlow reassuringly. "Come to me. Don't look." By now a crowd had appeared, drawn by the sound of the pistol shot. Bill fled from the bridge, desperate to escape. The crowd tore after him. In a panic, Bill climbed the drainpipe of a nearby house and scaled the roof. He grabbed a rope that was dangling from its chimney, intending to swing over to the roof of the house opposite. Quickly, he made a loop and slipped it over his head. But before he could bring it down his body and under his arms, a policeman sounded his whistle below. "Stop him!" cried a woman. "He's getting away!" Bill lost his balance and tumbled off the roof, the rope tightening around his neck. In seconds, he was dead, his body swaying in midair. Bullseye ran back and forth, howling dismally. Then the dog leapt at the dead man, trying to reach him. Instead, he dashed his head on a stone windowsill and fell to the ground. The dog was as dead as his master. Mr. Brownlow held Oliver firmly in his arms. Oliver couldn't stop shaking. "Nothing can hurt you now," Mr. Brownlow told him. "You're safe. Bill deserved that for what he did to Nancy." "Poor Nancy," Oliver sobbed. "Yes, she was a very brave girl." He hugged Oliver tightly. "Listen, Oliver, I have good news for both of us. I went to see Mr. Bumble and he gave me this." He handed Oliver a gold locket. "Open it." Oliver looked at the inscription inside. "Agnes," he read. "Mrs. Mann, the midwife who was with your mother at the workhouse, stole this locket from her. Later, Mrs. Mann married Mr. Bumble. That's how he discovered the locket." "Was Agnes my mother?" Oliver asked. "Yes, your mother and my niece. I gave her the locket many years ago. I recognized it at once. You remember her portrait at home? You look just like her." Mr. Brownlow hugged Oliver again. "You're my boy now," he said. "Do I really belong to you?" Oliver asked, hardly daring to believe it. Mr. Brownlow smiled. "You really do. Please God, your unhappy life is over forever. Let's go, Oliver. Mrs. Bedwin is longing to see you again." And hand in hand, they walked home.